Imagine waking up at 43. Your kids are grown, your house is silent, and suddenly it hits you. You spent your whole life praying for love, but never learned how to find it. This isn't just one woman's story. It's the reality of thousands sitting alone in church pews every Sunday. I was planning to create another video and started browsing through Instagram, or maybe it was TikTok, searching for ideas around a specific topic. As I scrolled through countless posts, a particular young woman's video suddenly caught my eye. Curiosity got the best of me, and without hesitation, I tapped play.
I never thought that I would be 43 and never been married, not engaged, not a prospect, not nothing. And I now understand those church work. Now that my daughter's in college, my son lives with his dad, I'm the only one here. And I work all day and I come home to a peaceful house.
This lady has a level of chagrin about her current state of her life. She's a single mother with 2 kids. She's living alone. And she now says, I never thought I would be like the ladies in church. And I kind of wanted to know what she meant by that, so I had to listen more.
You see people's marriages, and I'm an Uber driver. I'm taking couples on dates and all of that good stuff. I had a guy in my car today that was surprising his wife and taking her to Italy and Paris. And I was just like, like, it's not about the things that he said. It's about the fact that he loves his wife. And I was just like, dang, was I like a terrible person in a former life? Like, was I horrible in my youth? Like, how come I'm not lovable? I've had men tell me that they love me, and I've had guys say they wanted to marry me, all of that good stuff, but I'm still single.
The woman in the video seemed to carry a quiet but unmistakable sense of disappointment about where her life had taken her. You could hear it in the rhythm of her speech, in the pauses between her words, and in the tired look that flickered across her face. It wasn't the kind of sadness that comes from a single moment of pain. It was the deeper, heavier kind that grows slowly over years. The kind that settles in when life doesn't quite turn out the way you thought it would. She was a single mother raising 2 children on her own. And though she didn't go into every detail of her story right away, her tone carried the weight of someone who had seen both hope and heartbreak. As she spoke, she mentioned something that caught my attention immediately. She said almost wistfully, I never imagined I'd become like the women I see at church. That statement lingered with me, not just because of what she said, but because of how she said it. There was disbelief in her voice, almost as if she still couldn't quite reconcile her current reality with the image she once had of herself. Those few words carried years of unspoken stories, of choices made, opportunities missed, and quiet moments of reflection late at night after the kids had gone to bed. When she said she had become like the women in church, she wasn't mocking them, nor was she placing herself above them. Instead, it sounded like a confession, an acknowledgement that she now understood something she once couldn't. Maybe when she was younger, she'd looked at those women sitting in church pews every Sunday, single, praying, holding on to faith, and thought to herself, that'll never be me. She probably imagined a different kind of life, one filled with love, partnership, and stability. She might have seen herself with a husband beside her, children running around, and a home full of laughter. But now, life had humbled her in its quiet, unpredictable way. I found myself captivated by her honesty. There was no attempt to sugarcoat her situation. She wasn't playing the victim, nor was she putting on a performance for sympathy. She was just being real, something rare on social media, where everyone is trying to present the best version of themselves. In her simplicity and rawness, there was something profoundly relatable. Because deep down, haven't we all had those moments where we looked at our lives and thought, this isn't how I pictured it? I kept listening because I wanted to understand more, not just about her, but about what her story revealed about a larger truth. Her words weren't just about her personal disappointment. They were about an entire generation of women and men who are quietly wrestling with unmet expectations. Many of us grow up believing that life follows a clear formula. Go to school, meet someone, fall in love, build a family, live happily ever after. But real life rarely unfolds that neatly. Somewhere along the way, relationships break, people change, and dreams begin to look different than they once did. What made her story compelling was that it wasn't filled with drama or sensationalism. It was the normalcy of it that hit hard. She wasn't a celebrity or an influencer chasing fame. She was an ordinary woman trying to navigate the gap between her faith, her responsibilities, and her reality. She represented thousands of women who carry their quiet burdens behind polite smiles. Women who show up to work, take care of their kids, attend church on Sundays, and still go home to empty houses, whispering prayers for strength to make it through another week. Her reflection also revealed something about how society views single motherhood, particularly within religious communities. There's often a silent stigma attached to it, an unspoken narrative that suggests a woman's worth is somehow tied to her ability to maintain a family structure. When she said she never thought she'd become like the women at church, there was a sense of internalized judgment there, not necessarily from others, but from herself. It was as if she had subconsciously absorbed the belief that being single, especially with children, was evidence of failure or spiritual deficiency. But as I listened, I couldn't help but think, maybe that's not true at all. Maybe what she was experiencing wasn't failure, but transformation. Maybe she was learning the hard truth that life doesn't always reward good intentions or faith with the outcomes we expect. Sometimes life simply tests us, reshapes us, and demands that we find strength in the very places we never thought we'd stand. Her quiet chagrin wasn't about shame, it was about realization. She was beginning to see life through the same lens as those women she once misunderstood. Perhaps when she used to see them praying alone in church, she thought they were desperate, clinging to something that would never come. But now she understood that they weren't desperate at all. They were resilient. They were showing up every week, worshiping through their pain, holding on to faith even when love had let them down. And now that she stood in their shoes, she finally saw what strength that took. The more I thought about her words, the more they echoed a bigger message about empathy. It's so easy to look at someone else's situation from the outside and assume we'd make different choices, that we'd avoid their mistakes. But until life humbles you, until you've walked through your own unexpected valleys, you can't truly understand. We all have moments where we say, "I'd never be like that," and yet, life has a way of proving otherwise. Listening to her, I realized her story wasn't just a cautionary tale. It was a mirror. It forced me, and perhaps anyone who watched, to confront how easily we judge others while ignoring our own fragility. Her confession reminded me that we're all just doing our best to navigate the unpredictable nature of life. Some people stumble earlier, others later, but no one escapes completely untouched by disappointment. What made her story even more meaningful was the undertone of faith running through it. Even in her regret, she hadn't turned bitter. She hadn't lost her belief in God. In fact, it seemed that her faith had grown deeper, more realistic, more mature. She wasn't talking about faith as a guarantee of happiness anymore. She was talking about faith as endurance, as the thing that keeps you going when happiness feels out of reach. There was something almost poetic about that. Transformation. A woman who once pitied others for their loneliness now learning compassion through her own. It's the kind of realization that doesn't come through sermons or self-help books. It comes through living, through falling and getting back up again. And maybe that's what makes her story so powerful. It's not a story of defeat. It's a story of awakening, of seeing herself clearly for the first time, without illusion or denial. By the end of her video, I found myself silently rooting for her, not just to find love again, but to find peace. Because real healing doesn't come from another person. It comes from understanding your worth, even in the moments when life doesn't look the way you thought it would. Her story was more than just a reflection of personal regret. It was a reflection of the human condition itself, the struggle to reconcile faith with reality, hope with disappointment, and dreams with the unpredictable rhythm of life. And as I scrolled past her video, I couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, her honesty would help others see themselves too, not with judgment, but with grace. Because sometimes it takes looking into someone else's heartbreak to finally understand our own humanity.
Church is 70 to 80% single women. Yet the pastor want to sell these women this fairy tale telling them that your Boaz is coming. Keep waiting, knowing good and well that there isn't any single men in the congregation. And that's low-key manipulation. Because the men aren't flocking to the churches because the churches are catered to women. The sermons shame men and pamper women. The programs be women brunches, women conferences, women's night. The churches know who paid the tithes. It's the women.
She went on to share more of her story, a mix of regret and self-reflection. She explained that she now drives for Uber, a job that, in her words, doesn't bring in much income. As she looked back, she spoke about past relationships, men who once wanted to commit to her, men she turned away. Now, with time having passed, those same men no longer seem interested. There was a sense that faith had become a bigger part of her life. She compared herself to the single women she used to see in church, almost with disbelief that she'd become one of them. That statement struck a chord with me, so I wanted to understand it more deeply. Like many of you, I grew up in the Black church. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, I witnessed a major shift taking place. The older generation, the baby boomers, were still largely married. You could see it in your grandmothers, your mothers, and their friends throughout the community. But among my peers and those younger than us, marriage was becoming less common, particularly among women. One factor that stood out was how the structure of the church itself began to change. It had once been very male-centered, with strong outreach programs like the Brotherhood meetings on Mondays, male choirs, and active deacon boards. Over time, those elements began to fade. Women stepped up and took on more responsibilities, leading services, organizing church events, managing committees, and shaping the church's direction. While that growth in leadership was powerful, it also had an unintended effect. Men started leaving the church. The congregations became overwhelmingly female, sometimes 80 to 90% women. But these women, many of them single, still longed for companionship, for husbands. The problem was, the men they hoped to meet simply weren't there anymore, and that brings us back to the woman in the video. Her story reflects that same pattern. She's become one of those faithful women in church, alone and wondering how life took this turn. The real question, though, is why this keeps happening.
You go to these women empowerment, conferences, and they are allowing people to be vulnerable and transparent, and they are sharing how they healed from certain things and how God's word helped them to heal, which is true. I'm trying to figure out why we are almost intentionally leaving out that God's word also says that a man is a woman's covering and a husband is part of, or should be part of, an honorable, godly life. None of that is ever mentioned in a lot of these spaces.
This woman then shifted her reflection toward a broader issue: how churches, particularly in Black communities, approach growth and membership. She argued that many modern church strategies seem deliberately designed to attract women. Her reasoning was blunt but thought-provoking. In many religious settings, women are often seen as more receptive to emotional and spiritual guidance, while men tend to question authority or challenge teachings more directly. Beyond that, women also tend to be more consistent contributors financially, giving more regularly to the church. Because of this, many churches have adapted their programs and outreach accordingly. Rather than focusing on building balanced communities, where Christian men and women could connect and form families, the emphasis has shifted. You now see a wave of women-centered events, brunches, empowerment conferences, and sisterhood retreats that dominate the church calendar. Interestingly, another content creator echoed this same observation, suggesting it's not just an isolated perception, but part of a wider cultural trend within modern Black church life.
Let me tell you something. The church does not teach Christian women how to date. The church does not teach Christian women to date at all. What they tell us to do is to sit with our hands in our laps and to wait for a man to come at our door. That is not biblically wise. Faith without works is dead, and that applies to every area.
She went on to describe how the modern church, in many ways, has evolved into a marketing engine for women's ministries, leaving men increasingly on the sidelines. These gatherings, women's fellowships, ministries, and retreats encourage vulnerability and connection among women, offering spaces for emotional and spiritual support. Yet something crucial is missing: men. Her question was sharp and necessary. Why aren't churches cultivating strong male leadership anymore? Traditionally, the church viewed men as spiritual leaders and guides within both the congregation and the family, a principle rooted in biblical teaching. But today, that presence has dwindled, and according to her, it's not accidental. She believes this shift is deliberate, driven by preachers who, knowingly or not, deliver messages that criticize or diminish men, especially black men. This dynamic not only alienates the men, but also contributes to another, deeper problem she highlights. It reinforces the cycle of singleness among many black women in the church.
If you have a job and you lose that job, are you just going to sit and pray for God to send you a new job and then just stay at home and not apply for a single job? No. If you lose your job, you're going to pray, Lord, please bless me with another job. Of course, there's the faith. But then after that, you're going to go searching for a job. You're going to be applying for jobs and you're going to pray that God will bless you with the right job. If all you're doing is sitting at home doing 1,000 prayers for your future spouse, you are fasting, you are praying, you're doing all these other things, but you're not actually putting any practical works into dating, more times than not, you are not.
She pointed out another major issue: the kind of messages many preachers are giving to women, particularly in black churches. According to her, countless sermons encourage women to wait on the Lord, to keep fasting, praying, and believing that their future husband will simply appear when God decides the time is right. Now, that message isn't unfamiliar. It's deeply rooted in the culture of faith communities, not just in the US, but across the world. You'll often hear similar teachings in African churches too. People are told to pray and sow a seed, to give tithes or make offerings, believing that God will reward them with blessings like jobs, wealth, or marriage. It's a faith-based formula that promises divine results, but often leaves out the element of action. The woman in the video, however, offered a simple but powerful analogy. She asked, "If you lost your job, would you just stay home and pray for God to send you a new one? Of course not. You'd pray for guidance and favor, but you'd also get up, polish your resume, and start applying." Faith would inspire effort, not replace it. She argued that when it comes to relationships, many women don't apply that same principle. They'll pour time and energy into their appearance, careers, and social lives, but when it comes to finding a life partner, especially a man of God, they become passive. They pray, they fast, and they wait, assuming God will simply deliver someone to their doorstep. That kind of thinking, she says, has left many women, like the single mother in the first story, feeling disappointed and disillusioned. They believed faith alone would bring the right man, but without putting in the effort to meet people, learn relationship skills, or pursue opportunities, things simply didn't change. The truth, as she puts it, is universal. No matter who you are, man or woman, nothing in life just falls into place by chance. Faith is essential, yes, but so is initiative. Blessings often meet us halfway, through action, persistence, and preparation. Unfortunately, too many women in the church are still waiting for miracles that require movement, and that's become one of the core challenges facing modern Black church culture today.
Church that I visited, a lot of young people, a lot of young single people, right? So if anybody's looking to mingle, men of God, women of God, this is a great church for you. And in the comments, first thing or the second thing, it's like 7 or 8 women that commented, and it was like, you don't need to be at church trying to find anybody, just the Lord Jesus Christ. And that mentality alone just tells you the mindset of a lot of single people, or just women in the church. And I hate to just harp on women, right? But this is just the women were the ones commenting.
There's this brother in the church, a solid, respectable Black man, genuinely trying to find a spiritual home. Now, we all know that single Christian Black men are rare compared to the number of women in the church, so his experience really stood out. He started using his TikTok to highlight churches that were actually doing something different, ministries that helped singles connect, build friendships, and even explore Christian dating. Some churches, he said, were thriving because they made intentional efforts to bring people together, through things like singles fellowships or even Christian speed dating events. It's not unheard of. Other communities like Mormons or white churches do it all the time. But when he started encouraging this idea, not everyone took it well. Some Black Christian women told him to stop, to focus only on worship, not relationships. They said a man shouldn't go to church looking for a woman, only to seek God. But his response was powerful. He said, "If I'm a man of God going to church, of course I'm going to worship. But I'm also there to connect with other believers, men who share my walk and women who share my faith." Isn't that part of what the church is for? And honestly, he's right. Church should be a place of connection, spiritual, emotional, and even relational. Yet many women reject that idea completely. They say, "I'm just here to worship," as if building godly relationships somehow cheapens their faith, and that's where the bigger issue begins. There are three major problems happening at once. First, many preachers are unintentionally, or maybe even intentionally, keeping women single. By constantly preaching messages that center women's dependence on the church and not on family structure, they maintain control over their audience. If women remain single and emotionally tied to the church, pastors keep their influence, but families stop forming. Second, women are being told to simply wait on the Lord. They're encouraged to fast, pray, and have faith, but not to take real-world steps toward what they're praying for. Faith becomes passive instead of active. And third, when good Christian men do show up, many women don't recognize the opportunity. They reject these men because they believe they should only be focusing on God, still waiting for a perfect man to appear out of nowhere. That's the trap. Churches aren't investing in spaces that attract men, and when the few good men do come, they're often dismissed. So you end up with women faithfully attending church week after week, but still lonely. They say they're married to Jesus, but deep down they long for real companionship. Take someone like B. Simone, for example. She calls herself a Christian, but her brand of confidence often comes off as self-centered and unapproachable. And whether a man is religious or not, most men are drawn to warmth, humility, and peace, not arrogance. Many modern Christian women struggle with that. They read the parts of Scripture that talk about submission and leadership, and they ignore them, calling them outdated. But in doing so, they're also ignoring one of the core principles of partnership: balance. When you decide that you don't need a man, that you'll be fine on your own, that might feel empowering at first. But years down the line, when you look around and see others building families, having love and sharing life, reality hits. You start to wonder what went wrong. The truth is, you can pray all day, but faith without action is empty. God opens doors, but He won't walk through them for you. You still have to take the step. Sometimes the very thing you're praying for has already arrived. It's just not packaged the way you expected. Maybe that man in your church, the one who tried to talk to you, was your answered prayer. But if you're too focused on waiting for perfection, you'll miss what's already in front of you. And that's really the message here. God absolutely makes a way, but He also gave you the ability to make a way for yourself. If you refuse to act, no one else can do it for you. Sitting around waiting for miracles that require movement will only leave you stuck, watching life pass by. Faith is not about waiting for lightning to strike. It's about walking in the direction of what you're asking for. Because the truth is, some of those prayers have already been answered. You just haven't noticed yet.